Today I'm going to share with you one little trick that is really going to improve your cycling, and it doesn't have to involve anything more technical than a good old-fashioned pen and paper. It is, of course, a training diary. Now, I'm willing to bet that there isn't a teenager alive that hasn't kept a diary in one form or another, and I know I certainly did, although I'll be the first person to admit that I was more Adrian Mole than I was Samuel Pepys, writing about girls that I fancied, and well, I'm sure you get the picture. Unlike a personal diary though, a training diary isn't going to be mortifyingly embarrassing if you leave it out for your mum to read accidentally. Although, knowing my mum, it probably wasn't the accident that she made out. It doesn't matter what type of cycling you do, I would say that keeping a training diary is still a good idea. If you ride for fun, it will help you look back and remember the rides that you enjoyed. And if you ride for fitness, it will help you improve and it will show you just how far you've come. There are no hard and fast rules about how to keep your diary, but I would imagine that many people would use something like a computer and a word processing application. You could also go very fancy schmancy and do some sort of video vlog. I mean, who would do that? Or you could just revert to good old-fashioned pen and paper. The important thing is that it's there, it's available to you, and you can look back on it fairly easily. Despite me having my weekly bicycle diaries vlog, I would strongly recommend to use a computer and a word processing application. And that's because it's fairly easy to create a regular kind of format with it. And plus, in this day and age of apps like Zwift and Commute and their fancy graphics, it's very easy to take screenshots and include that. And plus, if you've got a smartphone and you're taking photographs on your ride, you can include those as well. So what sort of things should you include in your training diary? Well, basically it's up to you, but I would suggest having the obvious things like the date of the ride, the route you took, the bike you rode, what the weather was doing, and plus also to have a few numbers, so things like average, maximum heart rate or power, average cadence, maximum cadence, average speed and things like that. Plus, it's also very good to have an area where you can write a full description of the ride, including how you felt. Yeah, but don't apps like Strava already do that for you? Well, yes they do, but the problem with apps like Strava is that they don't really have an area where you can write a full description. More often than not, you're limited to a particular number of words or characters that may not be enough to describe that ride fully. The big disadvantage, of course, is that these platforms are still public. And while you may not be mooning over Sharon from 3F, although who knows, you may still be holding that particular flame, you will still want to record some personal information. For instance, if you're not having a good day on the bike, that could be down to some personal reason of your own that you don't want to share with other people. The point of a training diary is first and foremost to record your rides, and if you can record your rides you can measure them, and if you can measure them you can improve them. Plus, it's also going to help with accountability. So if you're sitting down at the end of each ride and recording them and then totting that up at the end of the week, it's very easy to find out if you've hit your targets or not. A training diary is also one of these things that it's great to dip into and actually read from time to time. And one of the best times to do this is when you're lacking a bit of motivation. So you can look back at a time when you also lacked a bit of get up and go, and it might give you some sort of insight into how you got back on the bike and how you got your mojo back. It's also very motivating to read about your own development. So for instance, if you are fairly new to cycling and you're riding 30, 40, 50 kilometers, it's very good to look back at a time when you could only ride maybe 5 or 10 kilometers, and that will give you an idea of how far you've advanced. Plus, as much as we like to kid ourselves, our memories aren't that great, and keeping a training diary can help you look back on some of the rides that you really enjoyed and remind yourself of maybe the great parts of that ride, so the routes you took, or even the place where you stopped and had a fantastic tea stop. Keeping a training diary is such a simple thing, but it can have a dramatic positive effect on your cycling. I recommend it to anyone. Thanks for watching.